Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review the second episode of Sweet Tooth. So, really, if you saw the very first review of me just freaking trying to, really just get through the first episode, because man, why did I get so attached? Why did I get so suckered in? And I'm going to complain about that and moan and groan like a little bit, but but I'm sorry, it happened. But I guess going into this episode, I was happy by this episode because it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more there is an action-packed sequence eventually somewhere in this episode, but we also get to just add in some more characters into this in this crazy, crazy world of the Sweet Tooth. We have Amy, a character who was added into this episode, and I really do like how we have a ground zero person that we kind of see their progression through all this. Because I don't think we really and truly got that in the first episode. I think there was a lot of there was a lot of this scene here, this scene here, this scene here, but it didn't show a progress of how somebody had been going through this this whole ordeal, which that's what I liked about this second episode. We also are still tied to both Rena or Ronnie Rani Singh and Aditya Singh. I'm probably ill pronouncing that. The doctor from the first episode. We are still he's still part of the show, and he's in this second episode, and it seems like he has a story. But we are also continuing Gus and Tommy's story. We also get to find out a little bit of backstory about Tommy. I'm like, oh, thank God. So we get to know a little bit about him and head on our way to start really investing in this character, because we eventually start to see that that Tommy might have a pill addiction, or might quite possibly have any number of backstories that are telling that maybe Tommy at some point was maybe a forcibly hitman for hire at some point of this world, but we may not know that. It's not for sure. They kind of glazed over that, but it didn't seem like I quite understood exactly what all that meant. Hopefully we'll get a much more thorough backstory of Tommy, so that way everybody could yeah, I'm definitely going to be investing in this character from here on out. Hopefully we don't get one of those where we finally get Tommy's backstory and then he dies in the same episode. I would just be what the... I have to get his backstory and then he dies in the same episode, because I know there's shows that tend to do that, where it's oh, you thought that we were going to give you his backstory and then he wasn't going to die shortly thereafter, so you can really feel the sting of him dying. No, plus we were I think we were trying to throw people off of who was I think we're going to try to throw people off of who's going to die on the show, if anybody does. If any more people die on the show, because I think it's probably going to happen at some point, sadly enough. Because if anything, hopefully you don't freaking have a almost go into tears during that freaking review. It's not the show's fault, it's my fault, because that's why I don't try to go and review Avengers Endgame again after I reviewed it once before. I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can review Avengers Endgame and not be like, oh, Tony Stark, oh, no. So let's go on into this episode. Really, this episode is much more light, it's much more bouncy, it's much more fun. We have Gus, who is to find this family, and it seems like this family name, I couldn't exactly find them in IMDb. I'm scrolling through, I'm so really in this episode, really, I'm just kind of going and like saying that this is like the family that they are to meet in this little cabin, this little nook, and eventually we'll see where that plays out. There's an action sequence in this episode somewhere, and I eventually will go into spoilers and talk about that. Really, I feel like it's good with this show because you don't quite grasp, like you're thinking that, oh, you're just gonna get this fun little episode and that's all, but then all of a sudden you get an action sequence toward the end and you're like, oh well, that's great. Like it kind of gives you some unexpected things, and that's the thing that I like about this show is that anything can happen, anything is possible, to where really like for example, like a show like Walking Dead, eventually you could just expect like, oh hey, this guy, he's just gonna stand and just like breathe in the good air and like just say, man, it's a beautiful morning, and all of a sudden like I'm thinking like, dude, he's probably gonna get a bullet to the head, and like 2 seconds later, and I'm like, mother. Like, dude, like this is like the best episode for this guy, and he was like finally like from going like bat crap crazy to being this perfectly fine person, and you got a whole backstory on him, and phew, dead. Like we didn't get that kind of thing in this episode, and we didn't get that in the last episode either. But still, like I'm just kind of expecting that to happen somewhere down the road. But with that said, I am going into that double five time territory. Because you know it's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that vicious time to go into spoilers again. So, spoilers now, everybody. This episode was fun. I liked it. So let's go into it. So immediately let's get the Amy stuff out of the way, because really we have her being the new showcase character. Hey, like what's gonna happen to her? Die. Don't get invested in people. They'll die. I've learned that from Walking Dead. Don't get invested in people. Like, I was trying not to get invested in this first episode with anybody, but I couldn't help it. So this is Walking Dead now. So don't get invested in anybody. Just just turn your heart to just utter frozenness. So that way you can just try to deal with all the death that will probably happen in this episode or this show or anywhere. So, because this episode is sorry for the dead people, so let's go into that. So, sorry for the dead people is because Tommy just starts taking out a lot of people towards the end of this episode. But let's get to the very beginning of it, and let's get into Amy. So, Amy, we find out, is a therapist of sorts, and she is going and eventually finding out that there is an Amber Alert going on, and so we just have Amy who just bunkers down into her therapy room. Like, she just bunkers down and she just spends numerous amounts of time just settling in this room. I'm like, how is it that she had food the whole time? Like, was there an endless supply of vending machine food that she just found and she's like, So we have Amy who, we see repetitiously that she's putting drawings on her window and sleeping on her couch that she has, luckily. Man, could you imagine if she had to sleep on the floor every single day because she didn't have a couch or a good set of furniture, and that would be how she slept, because she would have to have stayed there in that place bunkered down. So we eventually have Amy who has been in this place for a fairly long time, and so she decides to, well, hey, I'm gonna finally get out of this place and start to discover. So we have Amy who douses herself with a shirt of some sort to cover up her face, and she goes out there with some kind of weird looking statue or reward thing, and she goes out there and is like thinking like, what the heck is she gonna have to do? Like, wouldn't that have been crazy if immediately this woman finally decided, well, hey, I'm gonna get out of here. Like, hey, I'm gonna discover, and immediately she would have been shot down by somebody. I would have been like, mother. Why did I have to invest in that just so I could see this person die? like that would have been awful. So we have Amy that is to be later on in the episode. She is to go into, I guess, this zoo-like environment, and so she is to eventually go and start making a bunch of plants. And so we have Amy who is to see some sounds going on off the outside of her zoo, and immediately I'm like, okay, so dead now? No? Okay. So Amy is to scutter out and to see what is it that somebody had made a sound and did and whichever. And so we have Amy who is to see a basket. A basket of kittens? No. Amy is to look down to see a hybrid baby in a basket right in front of this zoo location thing. And so we have Amy who is looking at this hybrid little this little piglet, and Amy is just like, oh, look at you, you little baby piglet, you hybrid pig, you. Like, I'm gonna take you in and probably have to like watch you for the rest of your life. Plus, who knows what time span that her story is compared to Tommy's and Gus's and so on and so forth. Eventually, we could meet Amy somewhere down the road, and her hybrid is a lot older. We could never know. Like, we don't know how all of these are interconnected and how much time has been spent between all these different stories. So let's get into the Aditya and Ronnie story, and then we'll get to the Gus and the Tommy thing last, because really, like, we're gonna try to do like the new person, then the continuous story, and then the big finish. We'll go for that. So Aditya and Ronnie, I want to say Ronnie, but I want to probably pronounce it Rainy, because it probably sounds more like a girl's name than Ronnie. Or Rani? I don't know. Mrs. Singh. So, we go on and we have this to go on to seemingly play Scrabble together, and it seems like they are holding up pretty well from where they are at. And so we have Aditya needing to go and get Ronnie some more medicine, because it seems like they have figured out a way to stall this illness instead of actually having it just be in a vaccination thing where they're kind of just clear of it. Like, this is like a stalling like thing. For some people that have probably seen, no, they probably haven't. There was this game called Dead Rising 2. That's why I said you probably wouldn't know it. There was this thing called Zombrex on there, and if someone were to be bitten, they would have this medication called Zombrex, and so you could and hit the person with it, and then they would be like, they wouldn't turn into a zombie, so they'd be fine. Like, that's the same thing for this person. So we have Ditya, who mentions to his wife, it's like, well, hey, we're really running low, and Rani is like, well, you're just trying to get out of this Scrabble game because I'm whooping you. Like, I'm really going after you. And plus, like, they're kind of like, they're mad at one another because really, like, they don't know exactly if any of these are actual words anymore. They're just kind of like hoping that they're words, and all in all bizarreness because they don't have the things like Google or anything like that to look it up anymore because that's how bad things are. So we have Ditya who's like, well, I gotta go and get more medication for you. And so Ronnie's like, well, hey, like, go and get me some fries. Oh, give me a shake. Give me a million other things that we probably shouldn't have in this world then. So we have Ditya who goes outside of his home to go on horseback to go to uh, get out of this perimeter place, this perimeter spot, which I'm like, oh my god, wow, that's kind of cool. So, in other words, if, like, I'm sure this spot is for, like, the VIPs or the valuable people. They kind of just section them off and try to protect them, like a watchtower, like a guy with like a thing of light or whatever, just like protecting this guy because he's a doctor. So we have Ditya who is to go to this seemingly fast food looking joint. And so we have Ditya going into here to have this woman, this clerk behind the desk, who is like, "Hey, you feeling great? You feeling good?" And Ditya's like, "Yeah, sure. Like, I just want to make another like an appointment." And so, uh, so we have Ditya who is to see like a bunch of like military people coming in for this medical solution. And so we have Ditya who is going back to seeing this doctor. And so this doctor is to tell Ditya, you know what? Like, I think we're eventually going to have to get more doctors in here soon. Like, I think it's time for me to start talking to you like a colleague instead of like a friend, acquaintance, or whichever. And Ditya's like, well, why? Why? And so we have this doctor who's mentioned to Ditya. It's like, well, I think that you need to actually go and replace me here. You need to actually be the doctor of this location, and you need to find a absolute cure for your wife. Because what better way to have somebody to push for this cure than a man that wants to go and try and save his wife? And Ditya's like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I do not want to save the world here. No, I don't want that kind of pressure. And, but the doctor's like, well, wait a minute, there's something more. And Ditya's like, okay. And so this doctor is to mention that she is to have stage 4 cancer. And really, like, she doesn't probably have much long to live. And so Ditya's like, oh, crap. Well, like, okay, let's sign whatever papers that I need. Like, yeah, I got to. Like, it's, like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. I have to help. So, we have this doctor who is giving Ditya this paperwork about what they've been doing. And so we have Ditya who goes home, reads this thing, and we have Ronnie who's like, well, hey, like, isn't it great that you're, like, gonna be this guy now? This, like, you're gonna save my life and numerous others. Like, aren't you happy about that? And Ditya's like, no. No. And Rainey's like, well, why aren't you, like, excited about this? Why aren't you jazzed? And Ditya's like, well, yeah, because I read this doctor's research, and it basically goes against everything that I've ever done as a doctor. And Rani's like, well, why? And so she starts to read it, and she's like, oh my god. And then they stop it there. They don't tell you it's like, oh, well, every bit of this drug was a whole placebo the whole time, and nobody knew it. Everybody just thought they were getting better, but like they didn't say anything. They don't say they basically don't say that everyone's gonna croak in like 2 days from now or something. Like they don't mention, they don't tell you, and I'm like, like, so they want to leave it for the next episode. I see what's going on. So let's get to the Gus and Tommy story. So we have Gus who is to go along with Tommy, and so we have Tommy who is to like start chucking his garbage, like his bottles of water and stuff like that, and Gus is to pick it up after him because like you should try to hide wherever like you throw stuff. You should hide your trash so that way eventually enemies won't be able to find it and track you. And so we have Tommy going like, well, great. Well, I'm just gonna keep tossing all of my trash all around here. So really, it just slows Gus down. But like a bottled water, I think like a bottle of an empty bottled water actually is probably really valuable because what if it rains? You can kind of just like, yeah, oh, great. Uh, Plus also, like I think Gus didn't tell like Tommy about the whole like sap thing, like trying to get the a weapon or something to get some like sap out or something. They could figure out some like different way of doing sap from a tree or something. I don't know. But anyways, so we have we have eventually that Tommy is going to be camping for the night, and so we have eventually Tommy, who seems to try and be popping in or doing something with his knee, like he's popping it or something. Like I think really we have Tommy with quite possibly a bum knee, and so like he I think is like maybe it easily gets dislocated, and so he's like popping it back in because yeah, crap like that happens. So we have Tommy who's taking pain medication, so he pops one. And so we also have Tommy who is to open up a jar of peaches. And so he starts eating the thing of peaches with this fork and this canned thing. And so we immediately have Gus with his shiny yellow eyes in the background. And so we have Tommy who's like, let me guess, you're nocturnal too. And so we have Gus, who is eventually to share like a little bit of food from Tommy. And so we have Tommy, who is to go to sleep and then tell, like, Gus is like, I hope that you're out of here by the next day. And so Tommy is to wake up to have his campsite ruined. And he's like, dude, no. And so we have Tommy who is looking at Gus, and Gus has ruined Tommy's map. And also, we end up finding out that Gus had taken a lot of Tommy's pain medication. And so Tommy's like, why did you take so many? These aren't candy. And Gus is like, yeah, they made me feel really weird. I'm like, yeah, it's because that's not stuff you're supposed to be taking. And so I think we end up having Gus, who probably eats every single thing that that Tommy has. And so because of what Gus had done and just the how angry Tommy is, we have Gus who is forcibly to go up into this I think it's like a souvenir shop, but it looks like a like National Wildlife Welcome Center like place. And so we have Gus who is to go to this cabin, and so Gus is like he's looking, and then he's looking back at Tommy because Tommy has his gun out, And so we have Gus is like, "Are you sure you and me don't want to go together?" And so Gus pushes on to go in here, and he kind of sees that like he doesn't really see anybody right away. So he just starts looking around, grabbing at things that he's never seen before. And so eventually we have Gus, who is to eventually meet this family, and they are to come out and just say, "Oh, hey, you're alone, little buddy." And so eventually Tommy is to follow in with this location, and so eventually this family just decides, well, hey, like, hey, it seems like you're nice enough people. Let's just all have a meal, and so we just start to see Tommy, who's stacking up on supplies. Uh, every single time he's packing up on supplies that these people have, like beans and all kinds of things. Like Tommy's doing it with these people seeing it, so it's not like he's like stealing from them or anything. And so we have the father of this group who is to realize, oh my god, Tommy, yeah, like weren't you like a pro athlete? Weren't you like I think he probably said like a football player? Like, weren't you like a like pro football player? And Tommy's like, yeah, yeah, in a past life, basically at this point now. So we have a little bit of backstory of Tommy. I'm like, okay, good. Like, so we can kind of see like where where this guy is, and eventually, hopefully, where we'll get like a backstory of Tommy somewhere down the road. And it'll probably be a really great episode. I'm hoping. So we have eventually Gus is to play with uh, these people's kids. He is to go and play this like Marco Polo with these like Nerf guns. And so we have Gus, who is blindfolded, and he's saying Polo, and this other kid is saying Marco. And so we have Gus, who can hear everything, and he's like a perfect shot every single time and hits this kid, to where we eventually have this kid who gets angry because it's like, God, this kid can hear everything, even a whisper, like he can hear it all. And so we eventually have the mother deciding, like, well, hey, how about we just play music for him, and how about he just listens to that? And so we have Gus, who is starting to dance with this music, and the mother asks Gus, like, well, have you ever heard of this song before? And Gus is like, well, no. So we we eventually push on, and so we have the mother who is alone talking to Tommy, and mentioned that he had some marker on his chest, which I guess is to indicate like some scar or some kind of marker that is to show that he was some kind of um, like hitman, or some kind of like certain kind of person at some point in time, but he isn't that now. But this mother recognized that. And so we have Tommy, who is to uh, kind of tell this woman, you know what? Like, it seems like Gus likes you people. Um, it seems that like things are going well between you and him. Like, how about you just take him? Like, I don't think that I can take him. So, like, I want you to just take care of him. And so we have this family who is going like, yeah, you know what, maybe it'll work, maybe it'll work out. And so we have both uh, Gus and this other kid sharing this boat together. And so we have them exchanging books. Like, we have Gus, who is having his father's book, and we have um, this kid getting his version of the same book, and they are comparing the two. And so we have Gus is like, huh, like, oh, like I guess this is a little better, or I guess this is a little different. And but really, like, that's still like having it being a different kind of book that Gus is used to. It's like, well, yeah, but like Pubba was trying to do like the best he could to try to give this kid like a good education out of what he could do. So like, yeah, like things are going to start looking different to him for Gus compared to what he's used to. Everything is going to be new to him, and everything's going to look differently, and everything is going to everything is going to seem like that his father had maybe had like held back things or not shown him everything because it was probably impossible. So we eventually have this guy giving, or this kid giving Gus a hoodie, and of course it can't fit. And so eventually, this kid, eventually when he sees Gus again, he eventually gives him a hoodie that zips, that'll actually fit him. I'm like, yeah, I was like, immediately when that thing happened where, like, Gus wasn't going to fit into this hoodie because how could he? I was immediately like, dude, they should have got him like a zipped up one. Like, and then eventually they gave him that. I'm like, oh, good. So so now we are to have these people sleeping, and so Gus can't sleep, and so he is to kind of walk around to eventually see that Tommy is leaving. And so Gus is like, "Oh, like hey, I couldn't sleep either. Like, hey, do you want to go? Do you want to get out of here?" And so we have Gus who realizes that Tommy is trying to sneak out. And so Gus is like, like, that's yeah. So we eventually have Tommy who kind of walks back in. And so we eventually have a bunch of guys in these yellow rain suits all come to this center. And so they're mentioning that, hey, like we know that there is some kind of hybrid in here, and we're gonna just try to search and like find him, and that's all we want to do. We immediately have the family who ends up waking up and is going and going downstairs to eventually go uh, and kind of hide somewhere, and they're trying to get the hybrid kid to, they're trying to get Gus to come over there, and Gus is too scared and he can't move. We have Tommy who is assessing the situation and trying to figure out what he can use to be able to go and take care of these people. We have Gus who is to try to catch a scent of how many numbers of people there are of against Gus and Tommy and this family, and Gus is trying to get a scent, but he can't because of the rain. Tommy goes out there and he took this bear trap and he just starts decking people one after one after one till eventually this guy with, I guess his name is quite possibly Goggles, he ends up coming in here with some kind of tranquilizer gun. And so we have Gus who is trying to just kind of delay this guy until Tommy arrives. So we have Gus who is just using rocks and hitting this guy repetitiously with his slingshot. And we have Gus trying to make a defense, but it's just, like eventually we'll eventually see Gus probably being like Rambo at some point because he'll probably have to, but probably when he's older. Um, but we eventually have Tommy come from behind this guy with the goggles, and he hits him and he takes him down as well. So we end up having when the kid is giving Gus the hoodie, like Gus is saying, "Well, sorry for the dead guys," and the kid is like, "Oh no, that's fine." It's like, "Hey, you were trying to like protect us too," because I'm sure they were just gonna kill everybody in there and then just take this place for their own. So it seems like Gus and Tommy in this center place, it seems like there is some like ski lift thing, and so we end up having the father of this family who is to tell Tommy, it's like, you know what, like, we can't have Tommy and Gus here. Like, we can't have a hybrid here. Like, if anything, we need to protect our family. So, Gus, sorry, like, if anything, like, I think Tommy is just gonna end up getting stuck with Gus. Like, because really, if he wants to go on his own, well, out of luck for that. Like, and I think probably Tommy is the only one good enough to probably protect Gus out of anybody. And so we have them kind of just say their goodbyes, and so we have Tommy and Gus going on this ski lift to eventually just go into this location. And while we are to see that, we are also to eventually also see a like these kind of berserker slash like tribal savage looking characters that I guess are looking on to see this ski lift moving. And so we'll eventually see what happens with that. But with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.